Um, so before starting, so can somebody tell me that where we left last time? What we were discussing last time?
Ma'am, we were discussing layers of association and 2 by 2 table.
Very good. We were talking about, first we talked about indirect age adjustment or indirect standardization. And after that, we came up to measures of association. And in which we started, when we started, we said that what's the need behind studying or calculating measures of association. We said that in epidemiology and in research, we are always trying to look for some sort of relationship, association, or correlation between these factors and the disease outcomes. So, just to address that, we said that we need to calculate certain measures of association, that whether those who are having certain risk factor, they are at high risk of developing that disease, or as compared to those who are not having that particular risk factor. Do they share same risk, or there is some difference in the risk for development of that disease? So in that particular context, we started talking about 2 by 2 table, and that was the point where we left last time. So if I just take you back towards our whiteboard and just share with you that where were we were. I just told you that in a 2 by 2 table, we have two columns. These are the two columns and two rows. We generally write down outcomes on the top. Outcome means any event, any disease, or any particular outcome of our interest that we want to study in our research or in our study purpose. So the outcome, and here on the left hand side for the rows, generally I told you that we generally write down exposure status here, okay? And then I told you that in a 2 by 2 table, whenever we cut these rows and columns with each other, we are left with four cells. These four compartments are known as cells.
Cells.
Yes. Now, what we said that A are all those individuals who are exposed and they have this disease also.
Disease.
They develop the disease also. Now, then we said that B are all those individuals who are exposed but they did not develop the disease. And the example that we discussed last time was that not all smokers are going to develop CLR. Okay. What do you say? That is there anybody who is smoking, is he or she is definitely going to develop CLR?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
There might be few who might be smokers or they might be chain smokers, but they might not be suffering with any of the ill effects due to smoking. So this means that anybody who is exposed to any particular risk factor, they might develop that particular outcome or they might not develop that particular outcome. Okay. So similarly, in C, we are going to write down all those individuals who are not exposed but they develop an outcome. You must have seen many people, or you must have heard about many people who might have never smoked, but they did at times they suffer from CLN. Isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We will definitely talk about different models for causality and for association. That what are the different models? Now, whether any of the risk factor that is there is it necessary and sufficient to develop the disease or not? Now, see, let me just share with you one example that you may find more relevant. See, while okay, fine. See, while we are working in our hospitals, in our wards, we may come across certain tuberculosis patients. But there are many who are active tuberculosis patients. This means that they are shedding off tubercle bacilli in their droplets. But does this mean that anybody who comes in contact with those patients, they develop tuberculosis, although it is a contagious disease?
No, ma'am.
No. Why?
No, ma'am.
Why? Because although it is necessary for tuberculosis to have an exposure from tubercle bacillus. Tubercle bacillus needs to be there for causing tuberculosis. But not everyone who is going to be exposed to tubercle bacillus is going to develop tuberculosis. Because what other factors which are necessary or which should be sufficient enough that a person should be having poor nutritional status, a person should be having poor immunity, a person should be having poor hygienic conditions also. So this means that there are multiple factors which come and play its role, their role in causation of disease, right? So at times there are multiple individuals who might not be smokers or they might not be exposed to smoking, but they do develop CLM. Okay. So similarly, D are all those individuals who are neither, sorry, here it is minus. Sorry, this is minus. Now, they are those who are neither exposed nor they develop the disease, right? So this means A plus B are all those individuals who are exposed, and C plus D are all those individuals who are non-exposed. Yes. And now A plus C are all those individuals who are diseased, right? And B plus D are all those individuals who are non-diseased. Now see, this 2 by 2 table is very important. Whether we are talking in terms of associations, whether we are talking about biostatistics in which you will learn how to apply different tests of statistical significance, and whether we are making use of this table in screening for the calculation of sensitivity and specificity. We'll talk about that once we'll discuss screening. But here, just try to develop an understanding about this 2 by 2 table, that what it is, how it is constructed. The other terms, as I told you earlier, that it is also known as a 4-fold table or a contingency table. Now, why do we call it as a contingency table? That whenever we fill these cells with appropriate frequencies or numbers, we call it as a contingency table. Now, who is going to have more risk and who is going to have lesser risk? Now, I asked you one question, if you remember, last time. I said that, I asked you one question that, say, for example, if somebody has 50 chocolates and the other body has, if somebody has 50 chocolates and the other is having 20 chocolates, right? Now, do you remember this example? 50 and somebody has 20 chocolates. So I asked you one question, that how would you get to know through simple mathematical calculations, how would we get to know that this person X is having more or this person Y is having more? This was my question, I guess, where we left last time.
Simply we can calculate the ratio or we can calculate the percentage.
Excellent.
Making the point.
This is Shabir who is telling me?
Shabir.
Very well done. Very well done. Number one, you can either take a ratio of these two entities or simply you can subtract one entity from the other, right? So this is how we can calculate. We can look at the difference or we can calculate through a ratio, we can get to know that who has more. Now, if we just divide this 50 by 20, so say, for example, if I make it a more a round off figure, say, for example, if somebody has 40 and somebody has 20, say, for example, so this means that this would give us a ratio of what? 2 is to 1, isn't it? Yes. So this means that X has got 2 times more as compared to Y. Or this 2 is to 1 means that for every 1 chocolate that Y has, X has 2 chocolates. Got it? Now, similarly, whenever we have to subtract, so in terms of numbers, exact numbers, we'll get to know if this is 50 minus 20 or 40 minus 20. So this means that X has 30 more as compared to Y. Or we can, it's the other way around also, we can say that Y has 30 less as compared to Y. X. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So what do you think, that we can do mathematically whenever we have to look who has more and who has less, who has more risk, who has lesser risk? So what we do, either we take ratios or we take differences. Either ratios are taken, right? Ratios or differences are taken, right? So now do remember this thing, because this thing is going to give us lot of benefit that whenever, so if you ask somebody who is a smoker and he's suffering from some particular disease, so if you say that you need to quit smoking because the condition that you are suffering with is because of that smoking. So I told you that he might ask you that, okay, what if I might have not been smoking and even then I might have been suffering from that particular disease? So you would say that yes. But since you are having this risk more, you are having that risk factor, so you are carrying more risk for developing that particular disease as compared to an individual who is not having that particular risk factor. Okay, so that is the reason we need to be knowing all these association or ratio measures or differences measures, that how would you satisfy your respondents. Till the time we are not really clear that whether how much is the association between the risk factor or the outcome, how can we just advocate that thing to our patients? How can we convince them for something to stop or to quit or to change their lifestyle? At times, lifestyle modifications, weight adjustments, or you need to bring them towards something that might not be very favorable for them, but we need to justify that scientifically through research, through evidence. We need to convince that. Okay, so that is the basis behind our measures of association that we'll be doing today. And let me just take you back to where we left last time. So we were here, the 2 by 2 table, and this we have already talked about, that AR, which individuals we are, who are the Bs, who are the Cs, and the Ds. And at the end, we are going to have a collective. Either you add this up in the column or you add up this row, you should get that whole number all together here. So that is again going to give you a check that your calculation was right. Okay. Now, what is an absolute risk? I told you last time also that whenever we were talking about incidence, I told you that incidence is basically a risk measure. Why it is a risk measure? Because it tells us, it takes it into account the time element, and this is one thing that generally we see among those who are exposed to certain risk factors, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
yes. So this is something that generally we look among those who are exposed to a certain risk factor. Okay, and for that particular reason, that was one of the biggest critique behind this incident, because people said that incidents can only tell us about the disease condition among those who are having a certain risk factor. But what about those who are not having that particular risk factor? Say, for example, I gave you the example of non-smoker. What about CA lung among non-smokers, right? So otherwise, if we just calculate incidence, we generally calculate incidence among smokers who are, what is that risk factor? The risk factor is what we are looking for. We are looking for CA lung. But then the biggest critique was that it doesn't take into account those who are not having that particular risk factor. Then people say, and researchers, they say that, okay, we need to think of some other factor, some other measure that should be addressing this particular element also, and so that we can justify, or our finding or our evidence would be having a certain weightage also, that this is more among this as compared to the this. So that is why we always intend to weigh and balance and contrast that, okay, what is this happening among those who are having a risk factor and what is happening among those who are not having that particular risk factor. So this is what exactly is mentioned in this particular slide also. So you will read it up yourself and I will take you to the next one. So, now this absolute risk, it has got, now what does this mean? That it has important implications in both clinical and public health policy. This example, I think I might have shared with you. If any gynae people who are with us, anyone who might be practicing in. Now see what happens. Now there are certain infections, now torch infections, which if a female contracts during her first trimester, now she carries a big risk that she might be ending up in delivering a malformed baby, or she might suffer from, or the baby might suffer from some congenital anomalies. So what will happen that generally gynecologists, they try to convince the patient or that you need to terminate your pregnancy or abort this pregnancy. Now it's a very big, it's a big decision and a very traumatizing for a mother also. So what she might ask you,
Ma'am,
see,
that maybe
Yes.
the baby remains
Yeah,
safe.
what is the chance of having
The baby.
a normal baby?
yes,
the baby.
yes,
What is the
absolutely.
chance of recurrence?
Yes, Mariam, you are absolutely right. That what if now she might be saying that what that risk might be if she would have not been contracted rubella. So does there any risk then also? If I might have not contracted rubella, she might ask this thing from her gynecologist, because rubella is not the only reason that is going to cause congenital anomalies. So, but she would say, how would she comment on that till the time she doesn't know that how much is the risk of rubella among those, the risk of congenital anomalies among those females who did not contract rubella, right? So she needs to give her a logical answer that yes, there might be a risk that you might contract rubella or you might end up into congenital anomalies of your child, but yet since you are suffering from rubella, so the now increased many folds that you might end up into delivering a baby who is going to suffer from malformation or congenital anomalies. Yes. So that is what is. Let me just give you, explain this to you like this. Now, how would she say? So, what is going to be exposure here? In this example of congenital anomalies and rubella, who will tell me?
Rubella?
Rubella.
Ji Mariam? Sorry. Is this Saima? Who is telling me? Yes. Rubella is what? Ji bete? आप बताइए.
Ma'am, it's exposure.
Rubella, absolutely, Mariam, brilliant bete. Rubella is going to be an exposure. Excellent. Rubella is going to be an exposure. And what is going to be the outcome?
Congenital anomalies.
I think the malformed, ma'am.
Malformed baby or congenital anomalies among the child. So malformations, we can say malformed baby, yes, malformed baby, no. Now see, she is into which particular cell right now? That lady?
Exposed.
And ma'am, I think A.
Yeah, absolutely. She is exposed and she is going to have malformations also. And she might not be having this. She's asking about this. But there is a chance that she might not be having these malformations. It is again going to be based on the risk. Now she is asking this thing that what if I might have not contracted rubella, then what could have been the chances for developing malformations? Or what could be the chances for having termination or abortion in my case, okay? So this is this is something that can be only told till the time we know this thing from the evidence. You got this? This is something that can be told if research has been done and your clinician is aware of the fact that, okay, if this much risk is present among exposed, how much risk of malformation is present among non-exposed, right? So similarly, if we just take this example that we were discussing before, anybody who is a smoker and you want them to quit, and he has come to you with certain ill present or certain side effects from that disease, from that exposure, right? So smoking is this, and say, for example, he is suffering from this. So till the time you don't really know that how much is the risk for CA lung among non-exposed individuals, we won't be able to satisfy our patient. Okay, so this top row will tell us about the incidence of the disease among exposed, and this bottom row will tell us about the incidence of the disease among non-exposed. And yet, how are we going to look into the factor that who has more risk as compared to the other one? This is simply, as Shabir told us, that either we will subtract it or we will take a ratio measure of that. So this we will see, inshallah, in a while, that how do we do that as we proceed further. Okay. Now moving on to the next. See, this is what exactly is written, what I have shared with you, that to determine whether such an association exists, we must determine either in a case control or a cohort studies that whether there is an excess risk of the disease in persons who have been exposed to a certain agent. I hope this statement is now clear to everyone. If you are not clear about any of the word that is written here, you can ask me. Definitely, I'll be talking about case control and cohort studies in a short while once we are clear about these ratios and difference measures. But apart from that, are you clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good enough. Now, see, there is another statement or an example that is given, that let us consider the results of an hypothetical investigation of a foodborne disease outbreak. So the suspect foods were identified. Do you remember? Food-specific attack rates we calculated. So the
Yes,
suspect foods were identified, and for each food, the attack rate or the incident rate of the disease was calculated for those who ate the food, like those who were exposed, and for those who did not eat the food, that are, we call them as non-exposed, right? Okay, so this is the table that they have shown us. So who is going to interpret? You just look at this table and try to interpret. Yes, any one of you can interpret this table?
Ma'am, this is the attack rate,
Yes, yes.
food specific attack rate, food specific attack rate, ma'am.
Yeah, what happened that we see that, okay, all those who ate egg salad and they ate and they got sick also, they were 83%,
Yes.
right? And those who did not eat, but yet they were
Sick.
they were sick.
They were sick
30%.
without eating that salad.
Not eating egg salad, absolutely. So, as far as the Quran is concerned, 76% they ate. It means that they were all exposed to that particular specific food item. Got it? 76%
Yes.
of individuals they ate macaroni and also got sick. 67% did not eat, but yet they got sick. Similarly, cottage cheese is 1% of the time, so they have just shared between the attack rates and those who ate and those who did not eat that particular food item. Simple percentage so far, right? Now,
Yes, ma'am.
what next can happen? Now, how would we say that those who ate egg salad, they were more likely to develop the disease as compared to those who did not eat egg salad? How would we get to know that?
Ma'am, I think we can calculate a ratio between exposed and
Ma'am,
we find relative risk between exposed and non-exposed.
Who is this, please? Because I'm unable to see. Okay. This is Mariam Sajjad.
Yes, ma'am.
Very well done. We call it as relative risk. Among those who were exposed, incidence of the disease, among those who were exposed to that particular food item, divided by the incidence among those who did not expose to that particular disease item. Absolutely. So I am trying to take you towards that ratio measure or towards that relative risk. We are about to talk about that. Thank you so much. Now, see, I told you that two things. Either, as Shabi said earlier, that either we take a ratio measure or we take a difference measure.
Difference.
Very good. Whenever we have to see that somebody has an excess risk or an excess as compared to the other one, somebody has more, somebody has less, greater. So either we take a ratio or we take a difference measure, okay? So first, inshallah, we'll be talking about, so this means that for creating all that plot behind that we have been trying to create since last lecture, that measures of association, they can be seen in two ways. One, ratio measures, and the other are difference measures. So now this should be written on your heart that how do we take measures of association? Either through ratios or through
Differences.
Differences.
absolutely. Now this is clear. So how did they take that 2.77? They divide this 83 divided by 30. So they,
Yes.
this means that those who ate egg salad, they were 2.77 times more likely to end up into this disease, any of the foodborne illness that they might be talking about, as compared to those who did not eat egg salad. So they are telling you about the probability of developing disease among those who were exposed to egg salad, right? And this is, they are telling us in terms of numbers that 53 individuals are more those 53 individuals who ate egg salad, they are going to end up into foodborne illness more as compared to those who did not eat egg salad, right? In terms of numbers, more 53. If we talk that if there is 150 no, this was the ratio. So this is telling us in terms of numbers exactly that how many more individuals they are suffering from foodborne illness who were exposed to egg salad. So similarly for cottage cheese and tuna salad, ice cream and other. Now what happens that whenever there is a foodborne illness or there is an outbreak due to any reason, they do such sort of plotting to identify the culprit food item. Now, in this particular scenario, which particular food item might be the culprit behind this illness or outbreak?
Egg salad. No.
Egg salad.
Egg salad.
Absolutely. By looking at ratio measure, we can very easily make out that this is the food item that was mainly responsible behind that foodborne illness or outbreak. Clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Moving on to the next one. So as we have seen in this, so this is just now the explanation of the previous table that we have talked about. Okay. So let's move on to this. So how can we calculate that excess risk? In two ways. Either we take a ratio or we take a difference. And both of these things, they are going to come from where? Both of these data, this data is going to come from where?
2x2 table.
Very good, Kiran. 2x2 table. So this is known as relative risk. And that relative risk is also known as risk ratio. It is also known as what? Risk ratio. And this difference, disease risk in exposed minus disease risk in non-exposed, it is also known as attributable risk. Difference in the risk is known as attributable risk, or the ratio of the risk is known as risk ratio or relative risk. Got it?
Yes,
Or should
ma'am.
I-
Yes, ma'am.
See, whenever we have to look into it, let me just make a flow chart the way we used to make for our frequency measures. we talked about incidences and prevalence and all that. So we made a very, comprehensive flow charts so that just in a single glance we can get an idea who is joining us again. In associations, we have these ratios and we have differences, right? Difference measures. So you can write it down as ratio measures and difference. It takes a little long, that's why I'm not writing it incomplete. So you can write down incomplete. So difference measures, okay? Now in ratio measures further, we have relative risk. What is this? This is
Relative risk.
Relative risk.
who has
Risk
relatively more risk as compared to the other one. Those who are exposed, how much relatively they are having more risk as compared to those who are non-exposed, okay? And the other ratio measure that generally we have, it is known as odds ratio. What is this? Odds ratio, right? So we'll talk about this odds ratio once we will be done with our relative risk, because it is taken from relative risk. Right? Odds ratio. So this relative risk is also known as risk ratio. Risk ratio. Does it make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Why
sir.
do we, why
Yes,
do we call
ma'am.
it risk ratio?
Okay.
Why do we call it as risk ratio? This relative risk is called as risk ratio. Any one of you?
Ma'am, because it measures the risk of getting a disease.
Yes, it is a risk measure and a risk of getting the disease, but why do we call it? I told you that it is known as
Ma'am,
relative.
differences.
Because
Ma'am, we are relating two
because
groups now.
it
The
basically
one who are
tells us the
exposed
risk,
and one who are not
risk
exposed.
between
Very
the
done.
For
exposed and
comparison
non-exposed.
purpose.
Yes, we measure, we are taking, what is the ratio? Ratio is an entity between two random quantities, right? So they are not related with each other. So this is incidence of disease among exposed, right? And this is incidence of the disease among
Non-exposed.
non-exposed, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So that's why we call it as a ratio, risk ratio. So most of the time in exam, they ask you to calculate risk ratio. So whenever they ask you for the risk ratio, rest assured that they are talking about relative risk, right? So the other term used for relative risk is risk ratio, and the other term that is used for odds ratio is known as, you just write it down with you. We'll talk about odds ratio in detail, inshallah. It is also known as relative odds. What is this? Relative odds. And there is another term for this, generally used is cross product ratio. Relative odds. And the other term used is cross product ratio. And the most confusing term, the third term that is generally used for odds ratio, it is known as estimate of relative risk. I told you that it is taken from relative. It is also known as estimate of relative risk. estimate of relative risk. Clear, everyone? You all can make
Yes,
out that
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
relative risk, the other term used for relative risk is risk ratio. So this should be, clear to you, because I think for the next couple of sessions, we'll keep on discussing these measures of association. So we should be all clear about our relative risk. That relative risk is known as risk ratio, okay? And as far as your odds ratio is concerned, the other term, it is another ratio measure for looking or for calculating associations. So the other terms used for odds ratio is known as relative odds or cross product ratio, or it is also known as estimate of relative risk. Now, the most interesting term that is used for odds ratio, and generally in exam also, the students, they generally get confused from estimate of relative risk or estimation of relative risk. So if there is any such question in which they ask you to estimate relative risk, or so that doesn't mean that straight away you jump onto the calculation of relative.
दोबारा join करो दोबारा join करो
Okay, fine. Now we are. Okay, let me just take that Sadaf in and. Okay, Ji, and now we left here. So since in the beginning we are talking about ratio measures, right? And I've shared with you odds ratio and relative risk or risk ratio. Now see what I was sharing with you. Okay, what I was sharing with you was that generally whenever it's written in exam that calculate estimate of relative risk, students they straight away jump onto the calculation of relative risk. Now, please don't get misled by the term relative risk. So, whenever there is, it's written estimate of relative risk, this means that examiner is talking about odds ratio. Whenever you are trying to estimate relative risk through some other measure, and that other measure is odds ratio. So I'll be sharing with you, inshallah, in the coming sessions that when do we go on to the estimation of relative risk, where we can't straight away or we can't directly calculate relative risk, there we go or we move towards calculation of odds ratio, and we call that odds ratio as estimate of relative risk. or it is also known as relative odds, or another term for that is cross product ratio. Right? Now, there is one important thing to note. I share with you that relative is this again, it comes at times as riddle also. That I'm the other term used for relative risk. So, what you will write down straight away? You will straight away write down risk ratio. So, it's a ratio because it is telling you about incidence of the disease, about incidence of disease among exposed, and it is telling you divided by incidence of the disease among
Non-exposed.
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 absolutely incidence of the disease among non-exposed. Okay, so that's why now they are all together two different entities. They are not taken from each other. They are not related to each other. That's why it is also known as risk ratio. So risk ratio, absolutely. So can we also write down, instead of writing this incidence as risk in exposed,
Yes.
risk
Yes, ma'am, because incidence is a risk.
incidence is a risk, absolutely. Risk in exposed divided by risk in non-exposed. So in some of the books, you might find out relative risk written like this: risk in non-exposed. Now, if I say that, can I write down as probability of having disease in exposed divided by probability of having disease among non-exposed?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Because
Probability
we
is a
said,
chance,
ma'am.
ma'am.
yes,
Probability is a chance of having that disease.
yes. Or if I say, there are so many different things, but you all need to be familiar with that, because you may come across and then you might be thinking probability of disease among exposed, probability of disease among non-exposed. Okay. Now, there comes another thing. As I told you that disease is also known as an outcome, it is also known as an event in the language of research and epidemiology. So if it is said that event in exposed, right, or event in non-exposed. So what you will say?
Then incidence is also measure of events.
Yes, it is also it's a disease incidence among exposed and disease incidence among non-exposed. So that's why incidence of the disease in exposed and incidence of the disease among non-exposed, so that is known as relative risk. So these are all different ways through which you may come across relative risk written in different articles or literature, or the most commonly and the best way to write it down is incidence of the disease among exposed divided by incidence of disease among non-exposed, or it is also said as risk in exposed divided by risk in non-exposed. But they're all the same. They're all talking about relative risk. They're all talking about risk ratio. Got it? And now, where in the flow chart, because since I can't take it further, so where we are talking about the relative risk, please write down big cohort study with this risk. And what it is, I will just let you know once we will talk about that. So write down with this is cohort study design. We'll talk about this study design briefly, and then in detail, inshallah, you will study this study design with me in your third semester when I will teach you research. Right? So with this, we are clear about this? Relative risk, the terms used.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And this particular study design is going to give us an important calculation of relative risk. In which particular study design, which particular research we'll be able to calculate relative risk? It is cohort study. And do you remember one thing with cohort study? If I'm not, did we talk about cohort a little bit?
Ma'am, when we were talking about incidence, I think so we studied it.
We did talk about. So, anybody, if you can recall that, what is that important thing in cohort study? why I've asked you to write down cohort study with this relative risk. Any one of you? Yes.
Ma'am, it's like we differentiate the group of people like जो जिनमें exposed हैं और like जो exposed नहीं हैं.
Very good. So, what else? Yes, Mariam, you are in the right direction. They are exposed and they are.
Ma'am, we follow up a group of people having
Yes.
similar characteristics.
Okay, yes. So that follow-up will help us in what?
Ma'am, can I add something to that?
Disease development.
Ma'am, cohorts are the individuals who are non-disease in the start of the study, and we follow them throughout the period.
We basically see the cause and effect. Basically,
We-
this is an analytical study.
Yes. Bit louder, Afrinish, please. Carry on.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Ma'am,
now
this
it's
is-
better.
cohort study is basically an analytical study. We basically study the cause and effect of the disease. Or we follow people who have contracted the disease and having the risk factors, all that, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, Ruth, you are all right. Now, Mariam, I think she told me something in the beginning that while talking about incidents, we talked about cohort, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So that is the answer. Now, cohort studies, they allow us to calculate incidence. And for the calculation of relative risk, we need to have incidence, isn't it? What its formula says, incidence among exposed and incidence among non-exposed. Do you remember I made those, I don't whether it's with you or the third semester, that in cohort studies, we take a start with exposed individuals, the way Ruth shared with us, that we do have exposed individuals and we do have non-exposed individuals, and we compare both of these groups together and we see that, okay, how many of these exposed individuals they will end up into disease and how many of these non-exposed individuals they will end up into disease. So what in fact we are going to get at the end, we are going to get incidence of disease among exposed and incidence of disease among non-exposed, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, Dr.
Ma'am,
It's the same. Like in the cohort, we are taking two groups actually. One that is diseased or the exposed one, and the other one that is not exposed.
Exposed one, they are not the disease
So-
one.
Yeah.
Exposed ones, yeah.
ma'am,
Ji,
my
Shabir.
question, ma'am, my question is कि for example हम जब cohort is like हम कह रहे हैं कि उनको disease जो exposed हैं और जो non exposed हैं like for example अगर मैं इसको आप क्या कहेंगे कि for example one is control group and one is something intervention group और वो cohort हाँ तो उसको हम क्या करें because at the start of the experiment हम उनको cohort study कह रहे हैं जिनको हम दो तरह से treat कर रहे हैं one is controlled and one is intervention group so
Yeah,
at
we
the
are
end
not
of
thinking to anyway. अच्छा ठीक है आप पहले अपना पूरा question कर ली शबीर then I'll respond to that.
okay so जो कंट्रोल ग्रुप है और जो इंटरवेंशन ग्रुप है हम उनको भी तो आपस में जो है वो करते हैं या विद इन इंटरवेंशन या विद इन कंट्रोल ग्रुप भी हम किसी को एक्सपोज और किसी को नॉन एक्सपोज कर सकते हैं
बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. You are absolutely right. But once I say cohort studies, they the calculation of incidence, right? Now, incidence, as we said, that new cases. Now, do you know how these cohort studies and what you are talking about, whenever we talk about intervention, this means that we being researchers are intervening or manipulating. Once you intervene yourself, this means then we can label it as an interventional study or an experimental study. But what is happening in a cohort study that we have one exposed group and now that they are having that exposure by themselves. Say, for example, if I say that they are simplest, if I say that they are smokers. So we put them into one group right? So we label as exposed individuals. So what is that risk to which they are exposed, and what is that particular exposure that we are studying is smoking. And the other group that we say that is known as non-exposed group, or that is also known as control, as you are very rightly saying. Now that control group we are having in different studies. Like in cohort study, we are going to have a control group for comparison purposes. Like we really want to compare that those who are having exposure, how do they differ as far as the disease outcome is concerned. Sorry, as far as the disease outcome is concerned. Now see, these are the two groups, Shabir, with which we have taken a start. If I put them against this, now what we want to see over a period of time, that how many of them they will end up into disease and how many of them they won't develop the disease, right? Similarly, for non-exposed, how many of them they will develop the disease and how many of them they won't develop it. This is what is the pattern that we are going to follow in a cohort study. Now, what you are talking about is that is interventional studies or experimental trials. Now, in experimental trials also, we calculate relative risk, or we calculate efficacy ratios or hazard ratios, and number needed to treat and number needed to harm, and absolute risk reduction, absolute risk increase. So there are further other elements which are based on this initial assessment of relative risk. So we do calculate relative risk in interventional studies also. But the basic sense or the basic instinct of relative risk that was taken up from the cohort study. So that's why in the beginning, I would urge you to focus on this cohort study design, that how do they are going to help us in the calculation of relative risk. Why we can calculate relative risk in cohort studies? Because they give us incidence. Why we can't calculate relative risk in cross-sectional studies or in case control studies? Because they don't provide us incidence. They provide us prevalence. Do you remember I told you that case control and cross-sectional studies, they provide us prevalence?
Yes, ma'am.
In that particular scenario, in cross-sectional studies and in case control studies, we won't say that we are going to calculate relative risk. So for that matter, because these studies don't give us incidence, so researchers, they thought of finding associations between the cause and effect, or between the risk factor and the outcome through another measure. They look for the estimation or approximation of relative risk through calculations, and they arrived at a new measure of association that was labeled as odds ratio, or relative odds cross product estimate of relative. That's why we call them as estimate of relative, because
Ma'am.
we can't directly calculate relative risk from case control study. Right?
Ma'am, there's a question about that case control studies.
I'll be taking a finish. Let me just ask that, is Shabir clear about this? Shabir, are you clear on this?
Yes, ma'am, I'm clear. Can I say that relative risk is tells us about the magnitude of the risk? Like, for example, when we
Absolutely.
say 2 times,
Yes.
ratio is 2.5, so it means the risk is more than 2 times higher in getting the disease.
Absolutely. This was I was about to tell you. Once I had to move back to the presentation, I had to tell you that, and do remember this thing, that there is a reason that if we are looking into the ratio measures, or once we are talking about the difference measures, there is a strong logic behind that. What if we just calculate ratio because the purpose is fulfilled? But the ratio measures, they tell us about the strength of the association, that what magnitude you're talking about, it's basically the strength, that how strongly a risk factor is associated with a particular outcome. We can say that smoking is 5 times more associated, or it is 6 times more associated with CA lung, or with esophagus, C esophagus, or anything. Or if it comes out to be 30, around 30, in some of the literature and in certain books, there might be a little variation of plus minus 5, but generally, most of the literature says that if the relative risk is coming up to be around 30, this means causal association. causal association, whenever we say causal or causality is established, we say that now there is a policy statement, or this is a strong verdict, that if this particular is there, definitely is going to end up into this particular outcome. So this tells us, relative risk, it tells us about the magnitude or the strength of the association between the risk factor and the outcome. Right?
Right. Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Afrinish wanted to ask something. Before that, I think Afrinish should, and then definitely I'll be coming to you. Ji, Afrinish.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am, for a very good description about the relative risk. It's clearly understood between association between the risk factor and the outcome. So for about the in the case control studies, we are applying some different terminology. We calculate, I guess, the odds ratio. So
Absolutely.
And what are the two parameters that here we are monitoring? It's the association between which two factors? Can you kindly explain a little bit?
If I understand your question right, you want to ask me that you want me to tell about which particular factors must be there behind case control study in which we are going to calculate odds ratio, isn't it?
मैम इस तरह से ना कि जहाँ इसमें रिलेटिव रिस्क में तो हम देखते हैं कि रिस्क फैक्टर का आउटकम से क्या हुआ, मतलब रिलेशनशिप, और हम ऑड्स रेशो में क्या देख रहे हैं कि किन दो चीजों को मैच करें हम.
Exactly the same. There, okay. Now I got your point. Now see, I've finished. This is for you because you do have a background of public health. So a few of the students, they might not be able to comprehend, but I'll definitely explain this thing again to them at the right time. But since you have asked me, so let me just explain for you right now. See, what do we do basically in a case control study? We move backward, right? Retrospective study designs in true Latin spirit. Although I know that there are certain retrospective cohort study designs also, but in case control studies, what is our agenda? We want to see that how many of them they were exposed and how many of them they were not exposed, isn't it?
Yeah.
We look for our exposure status because in case control, as the term says, case control, we are taking a start with disease status. They are all those individuals who are already diseased. So there is no chance for the calculation of incidence here because they are already diseased. Because we know for incidence to be calculated, we need to take a start with healthy population, isn't it? So what maximum in case control studies we see, and you identify the possible risk factor beforehand, that which particular risk factor you have identified from the literature. Say, for example, let me just give you one example. You have taken CA breast females, right? And you want to see that how many of these females, they were exposed to OCPs, oral contraceptive pills, and how many of them they were non-users or they were not taking OCPs, isn't it? This is the main exposure that you want to establish between CA breast and OCP use. Similarly, among controls, now they are the ones who are not suffering from CA breast, but they might be having some other CAs, they might be healthy, they might be suffering from some other disease. But what is our agenda? Our agenda is to look among or to dig out or to inquire them through questionnaire that were they OCP users or were they non-users? Right? This means that 4 different possible options we have in a case control study right now. Again, we are going to make a 2x2 table. So what basically we write down here, we write cases in columns, control cases and controls in column, and we try to link these cases and controls with the possible exposure. Now, what happens that a case might be exposed or a case might not be exposed. A case might be exposed or it might not be exposed. Remember that from that flow chart that I made, two possible outcomes. So here we are going to put them. So in controls, this is C, whether a control might be exposed or a control might not be exposed. This is your D, right? So here again, what you will find out, you'll see that, okay, what is the probability, or what, again, now comes another thing, we'll have to calculate odds ratio here, right? And how do we calculate odds ratio? That I said that is AD over BC. This is the formula. This is for you. Here again, you will try to establish the link between the exposure with the disease. So if here again, it's a ratio. So what you will find out, say for example, if it comes out to be 2, or if it comes out to be 3 or something, how would you, now there is a little difference in the interpretation. Here we'll take a start with the disease status. In cohort, we took a start with exposure. We said that smokers are twice more likely to end up into CA lung. Here we would say that CA breast females were 2 times more likely exposed to oral contraceptive pills as compared to controls, right? Or there is another way of interpreting that odds ratio, is that odds of getting CA breast is twice more among OC users as compared to controls. Now, is it clear, Finish?
Thank you so much. It's very much clear. Very good description. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now for the rest of Afrinish is, mashallah, our PhD fellow, and she is going in a supersonic speed. So I wish her all the very best. But you all, the rest of you, you need not to worry. I'll definitely come to this, inshallah, in my successive talk. So we are going to take a steady start where we left. So let me just take you back to where we were. Here. I hope this is now clear. We have talked about all this. We just need to write down in front of relative risk, write big cohort study. And in front of odds ratio, write down in big case control study, or cross-sectional study also you can write down, okay? Clear, everyone? You have written all?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, good enough. Now again, please look at this table and try to comprehend this and explain this table. Any one of you? G. Any one of you, please?
Ma'am, in the population A,
Yes.
we have exposed and unexposed, and we have 2 ways to calculate it. One, we can take out the ratio, and other is we can take out the differences.
Absolutely, very well done. We have 2 populations and we have just calculated both of them. Now, I'll definitely come to this table. Mariam, you were asking something when I was, addressing our finished question. Mariam, it's hard probably. But you were asking something?
Yes, मैम
Please
लाइक
go ahead.
मैम हम लोगों ने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले पढ़ा था एब्सोल्यूट रिस्क. So मैं ये पूछना चाह रही थी, how can we differentiate between relative risk or absolute risk if we get some kind of interpretation अगर हमें आ जाती है तो?
interpretation if you get okay. Any one of you from the group who would like, it's a very pertinent question. Any one of you just want to check your understanding. Now, Mariam is asking that if we have been provided with incidents, that obviously that means an absolute risk. Or if we would have been provided with some relative risk, how would we make out that this is a relative risk or this is an incident, simple incident? Any one of you? Any idea? Any guesses?
Ma'am, relative risk
Ma'am,
is
I
basically
guess
the ratio.
if
We're
you are
comparing
provided with two different kind of population with some control, then we can be able to make out if it's relative risk or if it's only the incidence.
Yes, you're right. Very good. Absolutely. Aruj also wanted to say something.
Ma'am, I was saying relative risk is basically the ratio, and we are comparing exposed people with
Sorry,
non-exposed.
Mubin, I can't hear you properly, Bate.
Ma'am, I'm saying that relative risk is basically the comparison. It's the ratio. We're actually comparing non-exposed with exposed people. And incidence is
Yes.
basically the new cases. The
Yeah,
the
it's the
incidence
new cases.
alone is
Well,
the
absolute
term.
risk can be a certain exposure, and relative can be a comparison of exposed and then.
Absolutely, this is the difference. And if you are talking in terms of simple rate, if they said that 88 per 1,000 in a year, this among this population, so Marine, that simply means that it's an incidence, right? But if they say that the relative risk came out to be 2 or the relative risk was 5, or if they asked you to calculate the appropriate measure of association. Now, see, how do we will definitely practice these questions. You will practice these with me. So, in which they will provide you the incidence of disease among exposed individuals, and they'll provide you the incidence of the disease or the frequency of diseased individuals among non-exposed individuals. So there, and they do tell you that it was a cohort study or it was a 10-year study and follow-ups were conducted. So this is understood that this was a cohort study design, and we know that follow-ups, whenever there are follow-ups, so this means that we are trying to look for the new cases or the incidence of the disease. So there, definitely, we are going to calculate appropriate measure of association. So when I say appropriate measure of association, now remember one thing, that in cohort study designs, we go for relative risk. And there are certain conditions among cohort study designs also in which we calculate even odds ratios. Because if whether we calculate odds ratio, relative risk, both of the risks, they would be the same. So that's why do write down one more thing with your, because I wanted to share this this particular point while talking about case control or while talking about odds ratio. But since you have asked this thing, so that's why I'm telling you that in cohort study design, we have the liberty to calculate both relative risk and odds ratio. But in case control study, there is only one measure of association that we can calculate, that is odds ratio. Right? So whenever you will be provided such data, you'll be knowing that, okay, whether I have to calculate this, whether examiner is asking me to calculate simple incidence, absolute risk, or I've been provided with two different sets of populations. One are those who are exposed and the other are those who are non-exposed. So this means definitely, and they ask you to calculate appropriate measure of association. Whenever there is a term measure of association, this means they want you to calculate either relative risk or odds ratio. Or if they ask you that, okay, that I'll tell you once we'll talk about difference measures. But till now, is it clear, Mariam, now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, good. Now, as far as these two populations, now I think Ruth shared with us, or somebody, Mariam actually told us about this table. That is absolutely right. Now, they didn't make all those tables, and they have told us about the exact figures. Now, in exposed, and obviously on the top they have written in percentage. So this means that 40% in exposed and 90 among non-exposed. In population B, in population A, this is the status. 40 are those who are exposed and 10 are those who are non-exposed. And in population B, 90 among those, say for example, if we are looking excess risk among exposed, and 60 is the number that comes among non-exposed. So if we look at the difference measures, so simple, we subtract And once we take a ratio, this comes out to be 4, and here this comes out to be 1.5, right? So whatever risk you are looking for, or whatever disease you are studying, so this means that those who have that particular risk, they are 4 times more likely to develop, or they have 4 times more risk. They have 4 times more risk to develop the disease as compared to the non-exposed. Similarly, for that population also, we have seen in population B, those who have risk factor, they have 1.5 times more likely to develop that particular disease as compared to non-exposed. Right? So, a simple start. So they have given the explanation for the table that we have already talked about. Okay, so I won't be reading it. You can read it yourself. Now coming up to the study design that I was discussing with you, case control and cohort studies, they are designed whenever it comes up to associations that we have to, whether that association is between the disease and the risk factor, and this, say for example, whenever we have a risk and we want to look for its association with the disease, another way, right? And we want to develop association with this, whether there is association, whether there is a negative relationship. You know, association is also known as relationship also. Have you studied correlation in biostatistics?
Not yet.
Have you studied
No,
correlation?
No,
Okay,
ma'am. No, ma'am.
there you will think.
Yes,
There
ma'am.
you will. But if you have taken a start with the disease and you are trying to search, so sorry, let me just make the same, write down the same here, and whether you want to link some disease with the risk, whether the risk is there or whether the risk is not there, this means we are looking for the associations, right? This means, now if the scenario is the verb, we took a start with the risk and we end up at disease. So this means we are looking for what? Relative risk. And the study design would be cohort. Here, if we have taken a start with the disease and we are taking it back to look into the possible risk factor because of which individuals they end up into disease, this means we are talking about odds ratio.
Odd ratio.
And the disease and the study design is case
Case and cross.
case control or process. Absolutely, absolutely. Because I told you that in cross-sectional studies also we can calculate risk. This you will study in biostatistics once you will learn about analysis, okay? Now is it clear? Okay. Okay. Now moving up to further. So as Shabir told us in the beginning, if an association exists, how strong is it? How strong is the association? Or the way he said, the magnitude of the association, that how big is the association, right? So in a cohort study, the question would be, what is the ratio of the risk of disease in exposed individuals to the risk of the disease in non-exposed individuals? So this ratio is called relative risk, and we know that we can also call it as risk ratio. This is what it is. See, initially we saw this formula for relative risk as incidence in exposed divided by incidence in non-exposed. So it's a ratio of the two probabilities. I told you that even if it could have been written as probability of disease in exposed or probability of risk in exposed divided by probability of disease in non-exposed, this means the same. Incidence of the disease, risk of the disease, probability of the disease, they all mean the same. Or event in exposed, event in non-exposed, they all mean the same. Right?
Yes,
Anyone
ma'am.
will take that because we are having less than a minute for this current meeting, and then we will take a next start, inshallah. So then we will move on to the interpretations again, and we will see that how do we interpret this. And before that, this is a very important, this is very important line, that if there is an association, how strong is it? Because again, the strength, and they also tells you about the direction of association. Remember, two things we get to know from ratio measure: the strength of the association and the direction of the association. How strong is the association, and whether that association is a positive association or is it a negative association, right? So if there is a positive association, this means that as the risk is increasing, the chances or the probability for developing disease is also increasing. But if it is decreasing, if the risk we are decreasing, so the probability of having a disease is also decreasing. So that is what is your positive association. If one factor is increasing, the other is also. We also call it as dose-response relationship. As the dose increases, the response also gets increased, right? And as dose gets reduced, so we generally take this example with the number of cigarettes. So that's how we get to know that all those who are smoking one pack a day, how much risk they share, and those who smoke two packs or three packs a day, how much risk they are going to have for CA lung. So that is what is dose response, or the Okay, so I guess 20. It will. We'll just finish up within this meeting, Dr. Shabir. Right? Have you joined us?
Yes, thank you. I'm here.
I hope you're not in a hurry.
नॉट सो मच एक्चुअली हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आज इनोवेशन डे चल रहा है, तो आज रात 12 बजे तक कुछ ना कुछ सेशन अटेंड करने हैं. सो
Okay. So in which organization you're working?
इट्स ऑप्शंस इन हेल्थ.
So you're a doctor by profession?
नॉट, आप मुझे डॉक्टर कहती हैं, मुझे अच्छा लगता है, तो मैंने कहा चलो कह लें, लेकिन आई एम नॉट अ डॉक्टर. पब्लिक हेल्थ में काम कर रहा हूँ, पॉलिसीज और इन चीजों पे.
Okay, but somewhat you're linked with. Okay.
Yes.
So what is basically your qualification? It's good to know you. You have a very good insight. I thought you are a doctor.
नहीं मैम, एक्चुअली मैं पब्लिक हेल्थ में काफ़ी अरसे से काम कर रहा हूँ, बल्कि काफ़ी ज़्यादा काम कर रहा हूँ, तो दैट्स वाई वो फील्ड का भी. और कुछ मैंने WHO में काम किया है, कुछ UN में, वर्ल्ड फूड में, और कुछ प्लानिंग कमीशन में, लेकिन वो सारा पॉलिसीज और प्रोग्राम रिलेटेड था.
Okay, good.
That's why I had that.
Very good. Good to know that. And I just, I like the way so humbly you take your points and the way you are. So it's very interesting to me. And wish you best of luck. So I'll try to finish it up, inshallah, early. So just few very pertinent points that I would like to highlight as far as these relative risk and odds ratios are concerned, because they are so volatile, and we'll keep on revising them, but still at times we intend to forget, because these are the concepts which are going to go a long way with you if you want to stay in public health and in research particularly. So let me just quickly talk about a few things that I wanted to share. Sorry. I think let me just share this. Okay. Now, see, I told you that we are going to have the strength of the association and the direction, interpretations of measures of association, right? Now, when I say the strength of association or the direction of association, say, for example, if we have any risk factor here, we also call these risk factors as independent variables also, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we do call them as variables, right? Now, what happens that once this factor A, if this is increasing and the other is also increasing, this represents what? This represents positive association. This represents positive association, or this represents positive association, or we can also call it as direct association, right? Positive association or direct associations. So this you will study in correlation in your biostatistics, inshallah. Okay. So that also means a dose-response relationship as far as your measures of associations are concerned, and it is one of the prerequisites for establishing causality between a risk factor, a cause, and its outcome or its response. So now see what this table, that as this factor is increasing, as it is increasing, the other is also increasing, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Now that represents, and the strength of association and the, now see, if somebody asks you, and definitely this would be asked in your exam, and generally in university papers, they check that whether students, they have that clarity or not, that whenever they say that, okay, if we are able to find out association through ratio measures like relative risk or odds ratio, then what is the purpose behind difference measure? Now, ratio measures that tell us about the strength of association and the direction. This we have seen, right? Now, in biostatistics, how would you study that? You will find out they will give you a scatter plot. Have you heard about that? I'm sure some of you who have a background of public health, they must be knowing that there is a plot that is created from the variables. So there is a kind of a plot, and it's not really a straight line that is made, but the pattern is made. So the more closer these dots are, so this means the stronger is the association or stronger is the correlation, right? But if they are scattered and far apart from each other, so they might say that okay, association is there, but it is a weak association. Say, for example, the way I said that whenever your ratio measure is greater than 1 or relative risk is greater than 1, this means positive association. What does this mean? Positive association, right? But if it is equal to 1, if it is, let me just clear this. See, whenever we have a relative risk that is equal to 1, what does this mean? Any one of you?
Ma'am, positive association.
It is equal to 1. See, Mariam, if, say, for example, if Mariam had 40 chocolates,
Ma'am, it means that exposed and non-exposed are the same risk. Ma'am, this means that there is no any difference.
There is no difference.
They are equal.
They are equal. Absolutely, Mariam. Now you are right, but this
equal.
means the same. Incidence of the disease among exposed was this, and incidence of disease among non-exposed is this, right? So this means that the incidence that there are two different ways through which you can say. So what one we can say that there is no difference in the, or we can say that the chance or the probability or the incidence of the disease among exposed and non-exposed is the same, number one. Or you can also say that there is no association between the risk factor and the outcome. Because what our agenda is from this relative risk to establish the association or the link between the risk factor and outcome. So you might say that there is no association. One means same, equal risk, equal chance, equal probability, equal events among exposed or among non-exposed, or equal incidence among exposed and non-exposed. So what does this mean? That there is no association. We couldn't find any association between the risk factor and outcome, right? But whenever we have a relative risk greater than 1, when do we find out such situations? When your ratio is going to be greater than 1. Whenever your numerator is bigger than your denominator, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
How do we get greater than 1? Whenever this means that incidence among exposed is more as compared to incidence among non-exposed, and how more it is, how excess would it be? 2 times. Greater than 1 means positive association. Is equal to 1, no association. Greater than 1, positive association, right? And relative risk less than 1 means negative association.
Negative.
If I just reverse that, if I just inverse these numbers, so what I will get? Decimals. So what does it mean? There is one line that we say that exposure had a protective effect. Negative association means protective effect from the exposure. Those who are exposed, they are protective against this particular outcome, right? Give me any example. Give me any example.
Ma'am, vaccination of polio.
Very well done, Mariam. Vaccination. Whenever we are exposing our kids from vaccinations, like we have a proper EPI system for vaccination. So kids who are exposed to vaccination, they are less likely to develop disease as compared to those who are non-exposed. Right? So this is one of the most commonly used or commonly given example to interpret or to understand that relative risk less than 1. Now, same interpretation goes for odds ratios also. Odds ratio is equal to 1. This means odds of developing disease among those who were exposed to any particular risk factor was the same among those. Or we can say that odds of developing disease among cases in control is the same. Or odds of having exposure among cases and controls is the same. Right? Or cases and controls, they were equally exposed to any particular XYZ risk factor that you want to explore. Okay, or if odds ratio is greater than 1, so we'd say that cases were more likely, this much times more likely to have that particular exposure as compared to controls. Or if it is coming as negative association, so you would say that cases were less likely exposed to that particular risk factor as compared to controls. Right? Everyone is clear about interpretations? Any
Yes,
query?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let me just quickly take you to the interpretations here again. We have talked about this, and these are the interpreting the relative risk. So this we have already talked about. I need not to read it up for you, so you can read it yourself. Greater than 1, numerator greater than this. So this is an evidence of a positive association, and it may be causal. I've given you that example of that. When do we call? Whenever we have a very strong association, as I told you that literature says that somewhat around 30. So then we can say that this is a causal association. Now see, at times such tables, they are given in exam and they are like free marks for you. They have just written as delta risk is equal to 1 or greater than 1 or less than 1, and you have to give this interpretation in front of these numbers. So if you know that, so you are going to get those 5 marks for free. And I'm sure and I wish that all of you would be able to get that. Okay. So what is the design of a cohort study? This I have drawn in front of you, and I'm sure that now you're all clear about that. Still, if there is any, now the most important thing is that how do we calculate incidence of the disease among exposed and incidence of the disease among non-exposed. Now, let me just quickly take you to that again. Quickly take you to the whiteboard, and you will see that how do we calculate incidence among exposed and incidence among non-exposed, since we have been provided with the data and we have it. And say, for example, instead of writing ABC, say, for example, if I just write down, since, say, for example, we had a cohort study in which we had 50 exposed and 50 non-exposed. Say, for example, they were exposed to some radiations, and so if I just write down, these are all hypothetical numbers that I'm writing, right? So 10, and here I write down is 40, and say, for example, we are looking for some sort of leukemias or blood dysplasias among your respondents, right? Leukemias, right? So say, for example, now how would we calculate like incidence? They were like exposed, right? And they were non-exposed to those radiations. So how would we calculate incidence among exposed? And if I make one little nice circle over here, that would be A, that is B, and we know that this cell is C and this cell is D. Now somebody is requesting me to get in. See, icon is not showing up. You're all with me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay, fine. Okay. Okay, now see, this is what it is. So, for example, it's a data that we have. So, how would we calculate incidence of the disease among exposed? Any idea?
Ma'am, 30 divided by 50?
Very good. See, 30, that would be 30 divided by 50. So, if I have to write it down in formula, so that would be A over
A plus B.
A plus
A plus B.
A over A plus B. That is what incidence among exposed. Now the total population is written in the denominator, so that would be 50, and those who develop the disease, that would be 30 divided by 50, isn't it? So that would give us incidence among exposed. Now, how do we find out incidence among non-exposed? That would be how much?
10 divided by 50.
P over
Okay.
C plus T.
Yes. Very good. That is, if we just see in terms of formula, so that would be C
C.
over.
C plus T.
Very good. The total population, and among those, how many of them? C. And that is, no, that would be 10 divided by 50, isn't it? 10 divided by,
Yes, ma'am.
very good, 50. So if we have to take a ratio of this, so this means that 30, we know that we need to divide this 30 divided by 50 divided by, so what we have? 10 divided by 50. So you simplify these figures. Please calculate someone. Somebody should calculate this.
Ma'am, 0.6 and 0.2.
0.6 and 0.
Very good, 0.6. And since we have to move further for the calculation of the ratio, so that's why we have written it these decimal figures. Otherwise, we would have a multiply, and we would have said that this much are the new cases among this much population at this much time, right? So, but since we need to have a ratio, we are going to keep them as it is. So that would give us what? Which number?
3.
0.3. Very good.
0.3, ma'am.
No, but it's just 3, isn't it? Yes.
Only
Okay.
3.
Now, who
Three,
will,
ma'am.
yes, who will interpret this 3 for a cohort study? Yes.
Ma'am, exposed are 3 times more likely to develop the disease.
Very well done as compared to
Non-exposed.
very well done. Or we can even, once you know your study population and once you know your outcome, so you can even say that those exposed to radiations, they are 3 times more likely to develop leukemias as compared to those who are not exposed to the radiation. So you can even say it like that, or the way in a simple form, that the way you said that exposed individuals, they are 3 times more likely to have that disease as compared to non-exposed. So that is the formula. So do remember this, that how do we calculate the formula also. Okay. Now
Yes,
coming
ma'am.
back. Ji,
Ma'am,
please.
interpretation.
Ma'am, how do we get this number 3? I didn't get it.
0.6 divided by 0.2. If you do that, Vicky, how much you will get?
Okay,
Please calculate it yourself and then let me know what is your answer.
yes, ma'am. 3.
3. Okay. So that is, so this is the example that we have seen through our data. So we have this also. You can always, you can even write it down like that, and at the end you will find out this. This is a very important example because we are going to carry forward it for the calculation of our difference measures also. So what is this? Incidence per 1,000 per year. So they have calculated formal incidence among smokers. So what does this mean? 28. Who will tell me? Yes.
Ma'am, 28 out of 1,000 will develop the disease.
Yes.
Incidence rate.
G, to be, yeah, this is the incidence. Yes. So there is one important, yes, there will be 28 among exposed. Very well done, Afinish. I was about 28 new cases of, among those who are exposed, there will be 28 new cases of coronary heart disease per thousand population per year. Now, what is that per thousand population? This is per thousand of the population who is exposed, right? And those who do not smoke, so we'll say that those who do not smoke, so 17.4 new cases of coronary heart disease will occur per thousand non-smokers in the population per year. So this is very important, that among whom this number, so this 28 divided by 17.4, this will give us what? Risk ratio or relative risk, right? So these risk ratios and relative risk, they help us a lot. The way we saw in our foodborne illness, that what was the most important food item which was responsible for causing that particular outbreak. So similarly, look at this diagram. I told you that we have a very famous cohort study from Ingham Heart Study, which started up in Massachusetts near Boston. So, and I told you that most of the findings related to coronary heart disease or its risk factors that we know today is because of that study. It's a big cohort study, and most of the results, they have depicted these results in this table. I've taken this from your book. So please look into this table and try to comprehend that, what this table is telling us. Yes? Any one of you?
Ma'am, can I say something over here?
Please, finish.
So in the upper half of the table, we are seeing the actual incidence rates. Here we see like among the men and the women, and we have sorted the data among the two different age groups from 30 to 49 and 50 to 62. And we have on left side, we have presented with the serum cholesterol levels at different variables are provided.
Very good.
Can interpret from the lower half very clearly that among the age group 50 to 62 years, there is 2.8% there is relative risk, which clearly shows that the people who are having this, the cholesterol level less than 190, they're going to have more chances of getting that disease, the heart disease. And
this risk is continuously increasing with the increasing cholesterol. Now, all of you can see. Now, see, this is the data. They have provided us simple incidences that this much number of cases, new cases that are occurring per thousand. These are the true strata. They have made two different age groups to highlight that which particular age group is more vulnerable among men and among women. And they have given different cholesterol levels. Now, see, as the cholesterol level is increasing, the incidence is also increasing. See, and there is a very interesting factor among females here. If you just now see among men also. Now, this particular age group was less vulnerable at cholesterol less than 190 as compared to 50 to 60 years, 62 years of men. So, as the age is advancing, the risk is also advancing even at less than 190 milligram per decimeter. So, what that was otherwise protected, that was otherwise the same, or there was no association between cholesterol and coronary heart disease till the age of 49. But as the age is increasing, the risk is also increasing. But look here, among women, 30 to 49. Why is it so? Anyone? G? Any one of you? Gee, girls should be knowing. Any idea? Do we have Ali today? How many? There is no contribution from Ali's side, although he is such an active member of our group. Ali, are you with us? Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Arush, do we have Ali today?
Yes, ma'am, but he's not feeling that well.
Okay. Jean, any idea? See, females are protected because of their hormonal status.
Ma'am,
So,
due to
but-
estrogen levels.
Absolutely, estrogen is protective for females till 49. But see, after menopause, what is happening? Look at the risk. How this is the most vulnerable level where the risk it shoots up after that menopause. See, before menopause, till the time that estrogen is in the surge, so we are protective due to our hormones. But after that, look at the risk. We share rather more risk as compared to men for that particular age groups. But see, we were protected till here. Even we are protected at this much cholesterol. Even if we have cholesterol greater than 250, still very slight, risk is increased, or there is a slight risk is there for us. But we intend to have high risk as as we cross that line, cross that menopause. Okay, so that is the reason. So taking it further to odds ratio, and I think with this odds ratio or relative odds, because that is going to be altogether a different thing. Inshallah, we'll be touching upon that in the next session. So far for today's session, any question from today's session or from the previous session, anything that might not be clear, you can ask me. Because we
Ma'am, I
are
have a question.
last 10 minutes.
Ma'am, correct me if I'm wrong. Ma'am, measure of association के लिए हम ratio and differences दोनों देख रहे हैं, right? So we can have two different perspectives on the same information, right? Because if I remember, आपकी जो example थी population A and B में, उसमें difference 30-30 था and ratio was different, right? 1.5 and the other was 4. So we have two different perspectives. From two different ways, right?
Absolutely. This is going to be exactly the way you told us. But why I'm not touching about difference measures, because that is altogether another extreme. But you need to have that clarity in your mind that we are studying them under association measures. Now, association, the strength and the direction of association is being told by relative risk and odds ratios, but that how much amount of illness we can control, or how much we'll be able to prevent something among exposed individuals or among the general population, this we are going to get from difference measures. This is just for your query there because you asked me, okay? But otherwise, there is a full-fledged, difference measure